Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Mother's Day.
Yes.
I think celebrating Mother's Day, all mother getting flower and gift and go to restaurant treated by the all her father and children. I think it's a happy day to mother. Let us prepare our heart toward heaven. Let's sing a song, a holy song. Page 104, If life were gracious enough. 104, If life were gracious enough.
If life were gracious enough to grant my way, I would reach to the ends of the earth to give love in every day, and each would find his home with peace and friendship there, where joyous songs abound and happiness to share. If life were gracious enough to grant my dream, I would see your face in the stars and hear your song in every stream. The comfort of your smile in the warm caress of spring, in the dance of life all the while. I feel your love in everything. We will make life gracious enough to fulfill our dream. We will lift off the weight of the world, and our love will blossom supreme. We will free each heart from the pain and anguish of the past through the preciousness of our love. True joy will reign at last through the preciousness of our love. True joy will reign at last.
Thank you. Next song is 83, Go Tell It on the Mountain. 83, Go Tell It on the Mountain.
There's one verse on the back side.
Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain, to let my people go. Who's that yonder dressed in red? Let my people go. Must be the children that Moses led. Let my people go. Who's that yonder dressed in red? Must be the children that Moses led. Go tell it on the mountain, to let my people go. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain, to let my people go. let my people go. Must be the children of the Israelites, let my people go. Who's that yonder dressed in white? Must be the children of the Israelites. Go tell it on the mountain to let my people go. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain to let my people go. Who's that yonder dressed in black? Let my people go. Must be the hypocrites turning back. Let my people go. Who's that yonder dressed in black? Must be the hypocrites turning back. Go tell it on the mountain to let my people go. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain to let my people go.
Thank you. The next song, page 45, Amazing Grace. Page 45, Amazing Grace.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Though many dangers, toils, and snares I have already come, 'tis grace hath brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. The Lord has promised good to me, His word my hope secures. He will my shield and portion be, as long as life endures. Yea, when this flesh and heart shall fail, and mortal life shall cease, I shall possess within the veil a life of joy and peace. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see.
Thank you so much. Let us stand up, bow to God and Heavenly Parents. Today is Sunday morning, May 14th, 2017. Let us bow to Heavenly Parents, God and true parents. 경배. Hello. Join me prayer. 철학에 하시는 하나님 아버지, 참 부모님, 안녕하십니까? Most precious Heavenly Father and true parents, good morning. We are so grateful to receive a new day and new week. Last weekend was cold and windy and raining. Heavenly parents, we see that like a spring of the day that always changing the weather. Heavenly parents, we see that our life also connected with sometimes very happy, sometimes is depressed, sometimes is so, and sometimes faced with serious things. Heavenly parents, we never know that our life is guiding to fair, but we know that your love and your truth and your righteousness and your truth, Heavenly Parents, you are guiding us. Even difficult time, we can pass the time to be seeing the hope and your truth. We are grateful, Heavenly Parents. Please guide this week. We can find a way to navigate with you and your truth, and we can have a beautiful life with you, Heavenly Parents. Today, Pastor preparing some message from you. Please guide us to open our heart and mind to receive and make new determination of our life to be successful. Please bless this day. In the name of, I report in the name of Raman and Tamik Montanaro, Central Blessed Family. Aju, Amen. Thank you. Please be seated. Welcome our Pastor Montanaro.
Happy Mother's Day, first of all. Happy Mother's Day, Mother. And to all the future mothers out there, Happy Mother's Day. Today I want to talk about something very serious and good and evil. And this has been precipitated by something in my own life and the life of our church because of my sermons, which have been broadcast for more than a year. I'm losing my job, and it's been a very difficult year, and I can't really go into the details of it, but I can say that whenever you stand up for something and speak out for goodness, you have to realize that evil exists, and evil wants to stop goodness. But evil is not some force in the spiritual world like Satan with horns and a tail, you know, like we make fun of, like the little devil and the little angel on the shoulders, you know. It's inside of each one of us, there is good and evil. Inside of you, there is good and evil. And generally in my sermons, I focus on that. I focus on love and our responsibility to give love. And our responsibility to grow. And our responsibility to become sons and daughters of God. I focus on that because that is my responsibility. And no matter what happens outside, I still have the responsibility to become a good person, to grow, and to become a true son of God or a true daughter of God. So I focus on our responsibility because that's the only thing I can change, right? I cannot change what other people do. I can only change what I do. But the fact is that evil does exist. And if you start to speak out, if you start to overcome your own evil, you want to speak about that. You want to help other people to overcome their evil. You want to help by teaching. So that's why we do this sermon. And the sermon goes out on the internet. And now more than 400 people watch my sermon. Different people, different times. Interestingly, in the Philippines, hello everyone in the Philippines, we have grown the fastest. I have more than 170 likes for our page in the Philippines. And it grows every week, one or two more. So somehow the Philippines are very excited, very alive, and they want to hear our sermons. But also I have more than 100 likes in the United States and all around the world, actually about 30, 40 different countries. Because I have friends from all over Europe and Asia, even Africa, South America, Central America. I have friends throughout the world that are watching our sermons and that are friends of our channel. So it's exciting to be able to give the truth. But when you speak the truth, there are people who don't think you're telling the truth. There are people who think you're lying or that you're confused or that even, more interestingly, people think you're evil. There are people that think I'm evil, that I'm bad, that I'm a bad influence because of what I'm saying. In America today, we've embraced this culture of tolerance toward homosexuality and women's rights and the idea of everyone can do what they want, especially sexually. Whatever you want to do sexually is fine now in America. Right? Isn't that true? You know this. In your high schools, in your colleges, in work, everywhere. Any activity you want to do sexually is okay. If you want to change your gender from male to female or female to male, that's okay now. Everything's okay now. I'm okay, you're okay. Was the famous title of a book, actually. A psychology book that wants everyone to accept everybody else. I'm okay, you're okay. Does God agree with that? Does God agree with that point of view? Does God think that everything we do sexually is okay? That's an important question. And many of you who are listening, especially from the area that are really angry at me, they think that I'm wrong. They think that either God doesn't exist or that if God exists, He's tolerant of transgender and changing your gender and homosexuality and all these things. But I don't believe that's true. God created the universe with certain principles. And the principles of the universe were there long before human beings were created. Long before there were animals or plants. Long before there was even worlds or solar systems. The principles by which God created existed. Maybe you don't believe in God, but you still believe in universal law. What if a proton suddenly decided, I don't want to be a proton anymore. I want to be an electron. What would happen? The universe would cease to exist. If protons suddenly said, I want to be an electron, and electrons said, I want to be a proton, the atom would disappear. And the atom is the basis of everything. Can you imagine if protons suddenly changed their mind? They said, no, I want to be an electron now. This is insanity. God created protons and electrons. He created men and He created women. Are electrons worse or lower than protons because they go around the proton? The proton doesn't think so. The protons are in love with the electrons. And electrons are in love with the protons. Right? We're in love with each other, right? Yesterday we had an incident and we had to go to the hospital for a while, and I was with my wife, and they were amazed at how much I was spending time with my wife. And the head doctor, who was a woman doctor, she said, I'm amazed by how much you dote on your wife. I don't know if you know the word doting. A doting husband is a husband that takes care of his wife, or a doting wife is a wife that takes care of her husband. Like, are you thirsty, dear? Would you like some water? You know, and massaging her hand or something like this. And the doctor was amazed at how we were there for 7 hours, and she said to me, I don't see very often a doting husband like this. How long have you been married? And I said, 30 years. And she was amazed, and she said, I thought you were newlyweds, that you just got married. I said, no. I said, we've been married 30 years. We have 7 children. And she was amazed that I'm still taking care of my wife. But I love my wife. And my wife loves me. Do you love me, honey? Yes, I love you. Thank you. My coffee. Thank you. So she's taking care of me. So does the proton think the electron is lower because it's going around the proton? Is the proton higher because he's in the center and the electron goes around the nucleus? It's nonsense. They're equal in value. They have different roles, different functions, but they're equal in value. This is the problem. Today's women in America think that unless they're in the center, they have no value. And they're trying to become men and go in the center of the atom and say, I can do anything a man can do. Like the old musical. I can do anything, you can do better. Anything you can do, I can do too. No, you can't. Yes, I can. It's a battle of the sexes. I think it's one of the 1950s musicals. I don't know, Music Man or something like that. And it's a humorous song. But the humor's gone now, isn't it? Folks at home, the humor is gone, isn't it? Yes. The battle of the sexes is no longer humorous. Women take it very seriously that they have to compete with men. But what happens when you compete with men is you become like a man. And you lose your femininity, you lose your beauty to men. And most women say, fine, I don't need a man. And that's what's happening in America today. Women are saying, I don't need a man to be happy, to be fulfilled, to be what I should become. And they're encouraging girls to think the same way. And they're basically throwing men out. We don't need men. And they're doing all the jobs that traditionally were done by men, politics and religion and pastors and scientists and scholars and everything. There's not a single job that men are doing that women aren't doing as well. And they're doing them just as well as many times. They can be good at them.
Garbage man.
But my son is saying garbage collectors. You never see women garbage collectors. Maybe there are, though. I think in New York City, I'm sure there are women garbage collectors. Anyway, bus drivers, women, just as much as men, and everything. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with a woman doing any job. That's not the point. But the trend has been, I don't need a man. Women are saying, I don't need a man. I don't need a husband. I don't need a man to make myself happy. And men are feeling less and less valued by women. They feel like women are competing with them instead of trying to make a love relationship. The women are not trusting men. Men are trash. Men are garbage. And they're throwing men away. So what's happening is the men are feeling less and less loved. They're turning to other men for love. They're terrified of American women. Because an American woman is not really honoring you as a man or recognizing anything you have that's special. And so they're throwing the men away. And the men are either turning to other cultures, and we see a lot of men that want to marry Asian women now because Asian women still respect men as being different than women and respect man's position differently. But that's changing even in Korea now, right? And in Japan, it's changing. So the women's movement has changed the world we live in and made relationship between men and women very difficult. Very difficult. Women feel that if they go into a relationship with a man, they have to go in as equals and they have to assert their authority from the beginning. And I'm just as important as you are, and my authority is just as important as your authority, and so we're equal. But there's no difference then. It's like they're both protons. So the atom doesn't exist. And we don't see marriages lasting anymore. We see divorce or people not even wanting to get married. The marriage rate itself is very low and the divorce rate is very high. And the one that suffers from this are children. But also, most people don't even want children anymore. And many women are not having children until they're in their 30s or even their 40s because they don't want to be weaker than a man. And if they get pregnant, they're going to become weaker. They're going to need the man to take care of certain things while they're pregnant. They're like warriors. You've heard of social justice warriors, you know? People who are out there campaigning to change the world on the internet, you know, by always like running, you know, every commenting on every website and things like this. But the women became like warriors, like Amazons. And instead of being soft and feminine, they want to be strong, and they believe that's strong and feminine, you know. Strong, I'm a strong woman. Okay. Anyway, the point is this. Does God have a position in this? Well, my opinion doesn't matter. I could be right, I could be wrong. It doesn't matter what I think. How can we know what God thinks? Can I presume as a person, a man, especially the women out there would say, no, you can't tell me what to do because you're a man. All right. You're right, I really can't. I mean, my wife can tell you. She's a woman. But, you know, many times, many modern women look down on a woman like my wife who has children and stays at home and takes care of the family, that somehow she has lower value than a woman who has a PhD and works in the corporate world. They look down on my wife. I think from God's point of view, my wife is in a higher position. She's fulfilling her destiny as a woman, to be married, to have children, to be a wife and a mother. Myself also, I'm fulfilling my destiny to be a husband and a father. I think that's a higher calling than some career. These are very important things, aren't they? We're talking about. This is the core of our society. Anyway, I'm losing my job because of this. Because of what I say about this. I'm losing my job. Everyone out there, I'm losing my job. Because of this. But that's not even important. Again, what's important is whether I'm right or wrong, or whether God has a point of view about this, and whether I know what God's point of view is. There's many ways of knowing God's point of view. You can look at the Bible, and we will read the Bible today about this. But you should understand that God does have a point of view. The universe was created with certain principles. And if you look at an atom, there's a proton and a cluster of protons in the nucleus surrounded by shells of electrons. And they have different roles and different positions, and it never will change. And electrons are not going to change their gender and become protons. And protons are not going to change their gender and become electrons. It's not going to happen. So if we're doing that in human society, and animals aren't doing it either. You don't see male squirrels suddenly saying, I'm a female squirrel. I want to have babies. I want to nest. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. So this is the problem in our society. Human beings were given free will by God. We have the freedom to try to change our gender, to try to become a woman if I'm a man. Even to the point of having operations to change my genitals. And women have the same freedom to become a man. and as men have to become a woman. But it doesn't mean it's right. Just because I'm free to do something doesn't make it right. If somebody's a Christian, and nobody is really Christian anymore, many people are not Christian anymore, and they're wondering if the Bible has anything to say about homosexuality, do you not know, this is 1 Corinthians 6:9, do you not know that the unrighteous will not inherit the kingdom of God? Do not be deceived. Neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor homosexuals, nor sodomites, nor thieves, nor covetous, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor extortioners will inherit the kingdom of God. Have a nice day. You have to understand there are laws in the universe, and if we violate those laws, we suffer. We also cause suffering in society, to our children, to the people who believe the things that we're teaching, if we're teaching things that are wrong. We cause suffering in society. And so just because I'm free to do what I want, the fact is this: you're hurting yourself, but more importantly, you're hurting others. Because people that follow you and believe what you're saying is true will also suffer, and you will pay for that more because you guided them in the wrong way. Homosexuality is against the law of God. So what does that mean? Do we go out persecuting people who are idolaters and homosexuals and things like this? No, but we state clearly this is wrong, and we do not make laws that encourage it and that attacked people who are saying things against it. Right now I'm losing my job because I'm saying these things. Isn't that interesting? This is an example of law and of culture going in an evil direction, and people who are in charge of culture and law using their power to hurt somebody who is speaking on behalf of God. These are not my ideas, folks. God created the universe with certain laws. Now, true Father came as the second coming of Christ. He has passed on his mission to his youngest son, Hyung Jin Moo. This is true. So we can look at the lives of Jesus and of Reverend Moon and other saints like Gandhi or Martin Luther King, and we can ask ourselves, did those men suffer because of what they said? Oh, what a surprise! Jesus was crucified because of what he was saying. Let's look at that. We'll look at the end of John. We can look at the end of Luke also. The scene of the crucifixion. Jesus has been brought before Pilate. Then Pilate entered the praetorium again and called Jesus and said to him, this is in John 18, verse 33, and said to Jesus, "Are you the king of the Jews?" You see, the Jews were finding anything to accuse Jesus of to get him in trouble. That's what people with power do. They know they're misusing their power. And so they use laws and situations and people's opinions to try to turn the public against somebody. So they knew that Herod was the king of the Jews, and that if they could accuse Jesus of saying he was king of the Jews, Herod would want to kill him. But Herod didn't. And they thought, well, if he says he's king of the Jews, maybe the Romans will get rid of him for us. So this is Pilate, the Roman governor. And Jesus said, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Pilate said. Jesus answered him, "Are you speaking for yourself on this, or did others tell you this about me?" In other words, do you believe I'm the king of the Jews? Do you really want to know? Or are you just using other people's words? Pilate answered, "Am I a Jew? Your own nation and the chief priests have delivered you to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would fight so that I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now my kingdom is not from here." He says, but now my kingdom is not from here. Should Jesus have been acclaimed as king of the Jews? Yes. He came as the Messiah. The Messiah means anointed one. It means king. He was supposed to come on the throne of David, to rule on the throne of David forevermore. The Jews should have welcomed him as the king and said, he is the king. But because they all rejected him, he said, but now my kingdom is not from here. Pilate therefore said to him, "Are you a king then?" Jesus answered, "You say rightly that I am a king. For this cause I was born, and for this cause I have come into the world, that I should bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice." Pilate said to him, "What is truth?" And when he had said this, he went out again to the Jews and said to them, "I find no fault in him at all." So even though Pilate doesn't know what's true, he can sense this is a good man. And he wants to let him go free. But he says, "You have a custom that I should release someone to you at the Passover. Do you therefore want me to release to you the king of the Jews?" Then they all cried again, saying, "Not this man, but Barabbas." Now Barabbas was a robber and a killer. He was a murderer and a killer. So then Pilate took Jesus and scourged him. He whipped his back with a whip 39 times. It was tearing his skin and the muscles, and he was bleeding. He could barely walk after that. And the soldiers twisted a crown of thorns and put it on his head. And they put on him a purple robe, right? The kings wear purple, right? So they put a purple robe and a crown of thorns poking into his head, bleeding. They're mocking him. And then they said, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they struck him with their hands. This is the Messiah they're beating. Pilate then went out again and said to them, "Behold, I am bringing him out to you, that you may know that I find no fault in him." And then Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe. And Pilate said to them, "Behold the man." Therefore, when the chief priests and officers saw him, they cried out, saying, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Pilate said to them, "You take him and crucify him. I find no fault in him." Jesus suffered and died because of twisted logic. The Jews twisted logic to try to accuse him of crimes. But again, we have to ask the bigger question. Why would you want to kill a man like Jesus? Aren't we all good people? Isn't everyone good? I'm okay, you're okay, right? Everyone is good. Except people who talk like me, right? If someone says homosexuality is wrong, oh, that person is a homophobe. They're afraid of homosexual. Well, you know what that means, homophobe. Phobia means fear in Greek. Homo means either man or same. It can be either one. So homophobic is such a stupid term. I'm not afraid of men, and I'm not afraid of the same either. It's stupid. I'm not homophobic. I just think that homosexuality is wrong. It's not God's will. And although we may all be born with some tendency to be attracted to the same sex because of the fall, and because Lucifer was an angel, was the first being that instigated sexual relationship, and Lucifer is a neutral being, not male or female, he's a neutral being. Then Lucifer, his nature came into us, and all of us actually have some satanic nature, which all of us are attracted to many things, and it's wrong. We have to stop it. Look at the kind of sexual perversions that exist in society. We know that human beings are capable of being attracted to anything. There were rumors that the Tsarina of Russia, the last Tsar of Russia was Nicholas, I believe, and his wife was perverted apparently, and she wanted to have sex with horses. And so she would strap up horses in a harness so that she could have sex with horses. And apparently the way she died, this is just a rumor, I don't believe it's true. I've heard many stories about it, but the harness broke and the horse fell on her. Anyway, we know that there are all kinds of perversions. Doesn't make them right. Just because people are capable of being attracted to something doesn't mean it's right. You have the power to change the way you think and feel. You have that power. God gives you that power. So, good and evil, do they exist? Could we agree, at least, that the people who killed Jesus were evil? We can't agree about many things, perhaps, but can we agree that it was evil to kill Jesus? But did the people that were killing Jesus think that they were evil? No. They thought they were good. They thought Jesus was evil. Crucify him, crucify him. He's evil. He's putting himself above our law. He's putting himself above Rome, above our government. He thinks he's better than everybody else. He thinks he's the Son of God. Kill him. What a blasphemer. Heretic. Evil man. Homophobe. They didn't call him a homophobe. They would have, but they didn't. But they called him evil. And they killed him for being evil. But they were wrong. Did judgment come on them right away? Did judgment come on them? 40 years God gave them to repent. Jesus was killed around 30 AD. He was born really, he was supposed to be born at 0, right? We date our calendar from the birth of Jesus. So it was supposedly 0. But they realized in the Middle Ages that they made a mistake. Actually, more recently, they realized that they counted wrong because of the emperor's years, the way they were counting. There was some overlap. That actually Jesus was probably born around 3 BC. And he died at around 33 years of age. So around 32, 33 AD, 29, 30 AD, Jesus died on the cross. In the year 69 AD, Rome destroyed Jerusalem. The Israelites got more and more angry at Rome, more and more rebellious, and finally they followed a political rebellion to try to kick Rome out of Israel. And Rome came in with 2 legions and crushed them. And they destroyed the temple. Not one stone was left on another, as Jesus had prophesied. Jesus' prophecy came true exactly 40 years later. And the Jews were scattered. My ancestors, for anyone who thinks I'm being anti-Semitic here, I'm not being anti-Semitic. I am Jewish. My mother is Sephardic Jew, Spanish Jew. My ancestors arrived in Spain, probably after the destruction of the Second Temple in 69. So please don't be presumptuous enough to tell me that I'm anti-Semitic. I am Jewish, but I am being honest. The Jews killed Jesus. It was wrong. It was evil. And they were destroyed because of that. God cannot protect someone who does something against the goodness. Someone who does something evil has to pay for that. Has to pay indemnity, has to fix it. And God is a parent. And when your children are disobedient, if your children are throwing food at each other or hurting each other or maybe saying terrible things to each other, maybe you spank them or you punish them because you have to guide your children to do what is right. And the Jews are God's children. They were the chosen people. And when they did what was wrong, God had to punish them. And the suffering and the persecution that my ancestors had to go through for 2,000 years is related to the fact that they did not do what was right in killing Jesus. Maybe these words are not pleasing to someone who's Jewish, but you cannot deny them. They're true. So we can agree that killing Jesus was evil. Then we can maybe understand that in 40 years later, when Jerusalem was destroyed, the temple was destroyed, the Jewish people were scattered, that this was punishment for killing Jesus. And 2,000 years of diaspora, of Jewish people wandering without a home, of facing persecution everywhere they went, is the result of this evil act 2,000 years ago. Killing the Son of God. The last holdouts were in a cliff fortress called Masada. And more than 930 men, women, and children were hiding up there and had barricaded themselves in. And the Roman army circled this fortress and they basically laid siege. And they were running out of food and water. And finally, when they knew they were going to die, these 930 men killed their children, killed their wives, and threw themselves off the cliff. And in one day, 930 or 937 men, women, and children died. And that was the end of Israel. You think I say these things with a happy heart? My ancestors did this. We have to know there's good and evil. And God has sent people throughout history to speak the truth, to help us recognize what is good and what is evil, and help us choose. The central figure of everyone is the Messiah. We are all supposed to become small messiahs. Father was the second coming of Christ, inheriting Jesus' mission and bringing it to completion. He passed on that mission to us and said, you should all be tribal messiahs. That means I have the same responsibility as you do, as everyone does, to speak the truth and to live the truth. I'm not better than anybody else. I have the same struggles everyone does to live and be good and live the truth. But the truth is that the Messiah came and was killed. And again, Father came and he was thrown in prison 6 times. How many examples do I have to give you of good people suffering before you understand that this world is evil many times and attacks good people? Father was thrown in jail for the simple crime of speaking the truth. I'm saying nothing other than what Father said. If you don't like me, you don't like Father either. And if you don't like Father, then you're probably one of the people that rejoiced when he was thrown in jail, or tortured, or many other things that were done to him. And like me, I'm losing my job now. So maybe some people are rejoicing. They're happy. We got rid of this guy. I hope that's not you. But the fact is, I'm losing my job because of this. But I'm in good company. Right? I'm in good company. You know, very high level company. I'm very small. But Jesus lost his life for speaking the truth. Father lost his freedom and he was tortured to death. He should have died a dozen times. But he lived miraculously. But not just Father and Jesus. Look at Gandhi. He was imprisoned by the English how many times? For telling the English the truth. That they had no business being in India that they should get out and they should let India resolve her problems by herself. That they didn't want a colonial power. That England was not right to think that it had some moral superiority to the Indians. And Gandhi was trying to get England out of India. And he succeeded. In 1945, England gave up all her colonies at the end of World War II. Miraculous, actually. And Gandhi was murdered. Actually by a Hindu. Killed him. Because the Hindu did not like Gandhi. Even though Gandhi was Hindu. Because Gandhi was trying to make peace with Muslims and Sikhs and Buddhists and Christians and Jews and everybody. Trying to make everyone live together in harmony. And this Hindu did not like that and was trying to oppose Gandhi and killed Gandhi. Martin Luther King, here in the United States. Would you think that King was a good man overall or an evil man overall? He was a good man. He spoke about racial equality, racial unity. He talked about wanting everyone, all the races, to be able to be together in harmony. Right? So is that good? From God's point of view, you think that's good? Yes. We've talked about this before. God is colorblind. God doesn't see black and white and Asian and all these other things. God sees His children. Right? So, is it good to kill Martin Luther King? I had close relationship actually with James Bevel. Jim Bevel was a Marine before he met Martin Luther King. He was in the United States Marines, and he was a sniper. And he was an intense guy, really intense guy. And when he met King, he wanted a violent revolution. He wanted to lead the black people in America in violence against the white people. But King taught him that nonviolence was the way to go. King taught him you have far more effect and far more power, because King had learned this from Gandhi, interestingly. King had studied Mahatma Gandhi's life. Martin Luther King had studied Gandhi. Gandhi had learned this, interestingly enough, from Thoreau, Henry David Thoreau, who was an American transcendentalist, who spoke about civil disobedience, right? He wrote a famous essay on civil disobedience. He said he would rather go to jail, and he did go to jail, Thoreau, rather than pay taxes to a government that he did not believe in, doing things that he did not want to support. So wrote a famous essay called On Civil Disobedience. Gandhi read that essay, and Gandhi practiced that. But Thoreau was part of the Transcendentalist movement. They had all studied Hermann Hesse and Siddhartha. They studied the life of Buddha. How interesting, right? The truth doesn't have any boundaries. Buddhism, nonviolent resistance, this idea came to the Transcendentalists from India. Buddha was Indian. Even though Buddhism is more practiced in China and in Southeast Asia, Buddha was an Indian prince. Gautama Buddha was an Indian prince. So when the Western Transcendentalists, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Longfellow, Wordsworth, all of these famous writers had studied these amazing thoughts from Buddhism, they popularized them, especially On Civil Disobedience by Henry David Thoreau. Then these ideas went back to India again, and actually South Africa, because Mahatma Gandhi was originally born in South Africa, and that's where he studied. He studied in England, so he studied Thoreau's writings. Then he went back to India, and he began his nonviolent movement. Well, his ideas then came back to the West when Martin Luther King, studied Gandhi. King was very educated. Martin Luther King was very educated. He also studied Thoreau. He studied everything. But these men all understood. And where did all these ideas come from? Where did all these ideas come from? Jesus. Jesus talked about not resisting evil, but loving your enemy. So the origin of this idea of nonviolent resistance comes from Jesus. So the ideas go bouncing back and forth, east and west, but finally they really came from Jesus. So King studied them, and he convinced James Bevel No, violence is not the answer. So, I talked to James Bevel like in the 1980s. He had joined our movement. And he was working with us, and he was traveling around college campuses speaking. And he was a fan of Reverend Moon. He said, when Martin Luther King died, my hope for America died with him. But 3 years later, because King was killed in 1968, this is what he said. This was James Bevel's words from the stadium. He would speak in auditoriums in front of packed crowds at college campuses in the 1980s with us. And he said, when King died, I lost all hope for America. But 3 years later, Jesus was in the tomb, he said, for 3 days. And he said 3 years later, Martin Luther King's spirit resurrected in America when Reverend Sun Myung Moon came here in 1971 and he began speaking. He said, if you don't like Reverend Moon, you don't like me. And you don't like King, because Martin Luther King's spirit came back through Reverend Moon. I heard him say it 12 times. Amazing man. And I talked to him privately with some other members about King and about King's assassination. And he revealed to us many things that we didn't know. And of course, he was there when King was shot. He was one of the men that was there when King was shot back in 1968 in Memphis, Tennessee. And he told us about that day. And he said, we would always joke. Ralph Abernathy was there, and other great men of the civil rights movement were all around King at that time. And James Bevel said, we would joke when a car would backfire. You know when a car backfires? You know what that means? When the engine explodes, kind of poof, you know.
Cars don't do that.
Like
anymore.
old cars do this. Modern cars don't do it so much. But old cars would backfire. They make a big explosion sound. Well, when we would hear a car backfiring or a loud noise, one of us would grab our stomach like, oh, I've been shot. And they would joke about this because they were always scared. There were threats against Martin Luther King's life constantly. Right? People were threatening to kill him all the time. So they would joke about it, these men. They would like, you know, and they would laugh, you know. Well, when the shot rang out that shot King through the neck, King went down on the balcony of the hotel he was staying in Memphis. And they all looked up smiling, thinking that somebody was joking. And then they saw it was King. And they realized he wasn't joking, because King never joked about that. Because he was the one they were going to shoot. So I guess he never thought it was funny. But the other men would joke about it, maybe to lighten up the atmosphere. But King never joked. So when King went down, everyone suddenly realized he's been shot. Seconds later, a troop of white policemen came around the corner to arrest them for killing King. This is a conspiracy. This is planned. You don't have a troop of white men, white policemen suddenly available as soon as a shot rings out to arrest the black men around King for killing him? They were so angry, the men around King, and they were so united with King that the police didn't know what to do. They stopped arresting them and they ran away. Bevel made a joke about it. He said, when these policemen came around the corner to arrest us, he said, I reverted to my mother tongue. Now he's American, so his mother tongue is English, right? But he said, I reverted to my mother tongue. Street, he said, which means he began cursing these cops out in the most colorful language that he knew, which I'm sure was pretty colorful. All the men were totally furious and totally united with each other and angry at the police. How dare you arrest us? And go do your job, you know. So they ran away. They got confused and they ran away. They were expecting them to be scared and to go quietly. They wanted to accuse King's own people of jealousy and that they'd killed him. 3 months later, they found James Earl Ray in London and they arrested him. But he wasn't the one who killed King. And Bevel revealed something else. That King had been fighting against the Vietnam War. And the head of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, had called King in for a conference and said, you have to stop fighting against the Vietnam War. And King had said no. And J. Edgar Hoover said, if you don't stop, I will show to the press photographs we have of you having a relationship with a black Muslim woman. King, many of the leaders at that time had outside of marriage relationships. And King had a relationship with a woman. It was a black Muslim woman. But of course the black community didn't want to talk about this for obvious reasons. They didn't want King's memory to be, put down. But there's no good in hiding truth. And Bevel talked to us honestly. He said J. Edgar Hoover threatened King to reveal this if he didn't stop his activity against the Vietnam War. And King said to J. Edgar Hoover, if you reveal those photographs, I will reveal to the press the fact that you're homosexual, which he was. So J. Edgar Hoover and King were they were stuck. They were at an impasse. So what happened, Bevel made it very clear, it was that the government revealed to the black Muslim community, they showed them the photographs. And the black Muslim community, was led by Farrakhan and the others, kind of black Muslims were so filled with anger and hate about the white community that when they saw that King, who they thought was a sellout anyway because he was Christian, and they thought that was the white religion, when he was having a relationship with a black Muslim woman, they were furious, and they organized his assassination together with the FBI, together with the government. So a black Muslim killed King. Bevel told us this. But the fact is that King was a good man in many ways, right? All of us have sin. But he was fighting against evil in America, and he was killed. And he was imprisoned how many times for fighting against racism. In fact, Bevel talked about that point, about the sexual problem, because he said that's the one thing that King did not overcome, was that point. And Father, Reverend Moon, brought the truth about that. That is the Messiah's greatest gift to us, is to teach us the fall, to teach us that sexual relationship was the cause of the fall. Improper sexual relationship was the cause of the fall. This was the Messiah brought this truth to us. Even Martin Luther King didn't understand this. No one did until Father brought this truth. So this issue about sexual perversion and deviance and mistakes is very key and very central to the Messiah's message. And when we talk about good and evil, when we look at our society, when we see people who are changing their gender and are proclaiming homosexuality as the right way to go, and who are trying to preach tolerance and acceptance and even a celebration of homosexuality, we have to speak the truth that this is not God's original ideal, that God's original ideal is a man-woman relationship, man and woman loving each other, true love between husband and wife, parents and children, and making these beautiful four-position foundations. God, his masculine and feminine nature separated into man and woman, the two of them loving each other, creating a family and children, children seeing God in their parents, growing up in the love of God, being God's sons and daughters, and then this multiplying, going throughout history. This is God's original ideal. It's very simple. So if we think that is good, then the things that are opposed to that are evil. And we have to realize that good and evil exist, and that evil is always trying to destroy goodness. Because if goodness succeeds, evil is destroyed. So finally, let me say one thing. Toward the end of Father's life, Father stopped talking about Satan and evil as much. If you look at our pledge, 8 points of our pledge, they don't mention Satan or evil once. It's very interesting. And I thought about this and I prayed about this. And I believe Father got to a point where he had loved his enemies so deeply on the individual level, the family level, the clan level, the tribal level, the national level, this world level, even the cosmic level. He had been hit by evil and hurt by evil, but endured it with love so many times that he had transcended his evil. No one hated him anymore. Even Satan had bowed down before Father. So there were no more enemies. He had won over all his enemies. So from Father's point of view, all mankind are his children. There's different levels of good and evil, and they're fighting each other, but everybody is God's children. And this is Father's heart and Father's point of view. And that should be our heart too. So when we're attacked by evil, we have to endure evil still. Because we're not Father's level. We have to overcome, right? We have to become mini messiahs. Father said on the tribal level, we have to overcome individual, the family, the clan, and the tribe, all the hatred and all the sin of history. And we have to pay for that and clean it up. And that's the subject of another lecture and another sermon. But while we're being hit, we have to be grateful and love evil. I'm going to finish with one thing. This is from the Divine Principle, Father's teaching, in the chapter on resurrection. Chapter 5. The resurrection of evil spirits. Father talks about how spirit world comes down at various times in history and cooperates with us so that we can help them grow. Because without our bodies, without our life on earth, they can't experience and they can't grow. So then the question comes up, how do people who are evil grow? And Father says they grow by attacking us at certain times when we need to pay indemnity to go from the family level to the clan level, or the clan level to the tribal level. Then evil spirits are given freedom to attack us. And he says, third, let us examine the returning resurrection of evil spirits. In the Bible, we read about the cursed, who are liable to the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels, in Matthew 25:41. His angels here refer to evil spirits who live and work under the control of the devil. The spiritual creatures commonly known as ghosts, whose features and identity are often unclear, are none other than evil spirits. By the way, if you want to read along, I'll put the link on this. This is the Divine Principle, page 148, the chapter Resurrection, section 2.33. Even evil spirits are able to receive the merit of the age by returning to the earth. However, the works of evil spirits do not always bear fruit and result in their receiving the benefit of returning resurrection. To receive such benefit, their works must have the effect of punishing earthly people, to help them make conditions to indemnify their failures, which have frustrated God's past efforts to cleanse them of their sins. In other words, if you keep sinning, if you're stuck in your sin, God will allow evil spirits to attack you, to hit you, to punish you, so you can change. Is that good? Yes. If I change from doing evil to doing good because of punishment, then that's good. So then those evil spirits ultimately they did a good thing, so they can get benefit. Let us take an example. How then can the works of evil spirits result in casting judgment on behalf of heaven? Let us take an example. Suppose there is a person living on earth who, based on the merit of the age, is about to graduate from his current sphere of benefit to a higher sphere of benefit. He cannot graduate to the new sphere of benefit unless he first makes some condition of indemnity to remove the sins of the past. In the case of graduating from the family sphere to the clan sphere, a person must pay the debt of sin, both for himself and for the ancestors of his clan. Heaven allows evil spirits to torment him as punishment for this sin. If he willingly endures the suffering given by the evil spirits and overcomes it, he will have successfully paid the indemnity through this condition, and thus be entitled to enter the higher sphere of benefit at the clan level. The evil spirits who have tormented him receive a corresponding benefit. So, good and evil exist. Evil will attack goodness. If goodness suffers the attack and gratefully and pays indemnity through that, the goodness can rise up. Evil will change and become good through this, and ultimately the world can be changed. That's our responsibility. But we have to realize that there is evil in this world, and there is good, and that God is good, and there's only one way to live with God,
We cannot be tolerant of evil and live in an evil way and expect God to accept us, because God is loving. God is loving, but He's also truthful and principled. God is loving, but He created protons and electrons, and they're supposed to stay as protons and electrons and not change. We have to keep the principle and become true loving people. So, anyway, I thank you for your time and listening. I hope you can pray deeply about these things, and that you can ultimately become a warrior for goodness, for God. Please study Father's teachings. They're all linked online. Please study the Divine Principle. Please study Father's speeches. Please study the Bible. Become a righteous person and fight against your own evil and fight against the evil in society. Thank you very much. Let's pray. Please join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, I want to thank you so much for your love and your truth. Father, we have to stand up for what is good. But I know that in this world, standing up for goodness means that you become a target for people who don't want to accept what you're saying. We have to be confident like Jesus, and we have to be firm and strong like Jesus, and like Father, and like Gandhi, and like King. We have to stand up for good, even when we risk our lives to do so. I thank you so much for your love and guidance. Please bless everyone who's listening, and bless everyone who is alive on this earth, that they can be guided by you to become true and righteous and loving people. Thank you so much for your guidance. I ask your blessing on this day, and offer this report in the name of Raman and Tamiko Montanaro, a blessed central family. 축복 중심 가정 라만과 타미코 몬타나의 이름으로 보고드립니다. 아주. 아멘. Thank you, everybody.